Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Woolly Wednesday. I'm Cindra Kirscher, Shave 'em to Save 'em Program Coordinator, and here with me today is the lovely Margaret Radcliffe. Some of you may remember Margaret from our Wrap It Up Shawl Challenge that she led for us a couple of months back, and we've invited Margaret back again to announce another challenge. So, Margaret, welcome.
Thank you very much for inviting me to do this.
We're thrilled. We're glad you wanted to do this. For folks who haven't met you yet, Margaret, please give us just a little bit of background about yourself. I know you've got a lot going on in the fiber world, and folks would love to know about you.
Well, people ask me certain questions like, where are you from? I live in Blacksburg, Virginia, and that's where I'm broadcasting from today. I have been knitting for 58 years. That's hard to believe, but I'm older than I look, I hope. I started working professionally in the fiber arts in 1991 when I started teaching knitting. And then I started a pattern publishing business, desktop publishing, called Maggie's Rags in 1987. I have taught for a long time at shops, stores, at knitting guilds, for professional organizations, at conferences, and on boats. I do an annual cruise on a windjammer in Maine, which is my favorite teaching job of the year. In about 2004 and 5, I started writing knitting books. So I have 4 books now. I don't know. Do you want to go down the list, Cindra, or shall I?
Why don't you do it?
Okay. My first book is called The Knitting Answer Book, which is in 2 editions. It's been out for, hard to believe, it's been out for 15 years, 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, no, less than that, but around 15 or 16 years. You may have it with one of either of 2 covers. My second book is called The Essential Guide to Color Knitting Techniques. My third book was Circular Knitting Workshop, which is an introduction to all sorts of different approaches to knitting things circularly. And it's one I'll be referring to in the course of this challenge because there are chapters on how to make things like scarves circularly and how to make hats circularly, either from the bottom up or the top down. And so I have some of the samples from that book that I can talk about as approaches to knitting hats and scarves. And where was I? That was the third one. The fourth one is called The Knowledgeable Knitter.
Awesome. How was your, I saw some photos from your Windjammer cruise this year. How was that?
It was lovely. We had to cancel last year, of course, because of the pandemic. And we had a nice mix of about half of the people came back from prior years. So it's a little bit of a reunion. And about half of them were new. And so there were new faces and new questions. And we had a good time. Excellent food, good weather, except one day when it was a little rainy, lots of wind so we could actually sail. And people just enjoyed themselves.
Nice. Very nice. I'm so glad you got to do that. It's been nice to be able to get out and connect with people again at some of the fiber festivals here recently. I know folks are ready to get back to some kind of normalcy. So
yeah, I know you were up in Rhinebeck. I was sorry that I couldn't go to that one, but I just gotten back from the previous trip.
There's a lot, and they all seem to be in the same month to 2 month time period. Unfortunately, I can't do them all, but. All right, so why we're here today, our next challenge, Margaret is going to lead us through a new challenge. I didn't come up with a clever name this time. It is the SE2SE, or Shave 'em to Save 'em Hat and Scarf Challenge. We are going to make sets. Matching hat for your noggin and a matching scarf for your nape. And this is going to be a 4-session challenge. The weeks are not consecutive. I'm going to say that again. The weeks are not consecutive. So it's going to start in November. We're going to skip a week, do another week in November, and we're actually going to roll into 2 weeks early December. So you will have time to get this completed before Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or whatever you might want, or just, before the new year comes. If you're knitting it for yourself or, you've got a time crunch by the end of the year, you should be able to probably get this done. Dates for this, let's see, first week is next week, actually. And the sign up page on our website is actually live as of today. So you can go to, I'm going to show you 2 options here. Livestockconservancy.org is our homepage. And if you scroll to the bottom of the homepage, you will see a little blog section. And right at the top of the blog, there's a photo of a mannequin with a hat and a scarf. And right there is the info about the challenge. or you can go directly to the sign up page, which is now livestockconservancy.org/2021/10/27/SE2SE-fiber-challenge-hats and -scarves. All right. We would love to have you join us at that. Let me hide this. Okay. So 4 weeks of hats and scarves. Week 1, Wednesday, November 3rd, 7 p.m. Margaret, what are we going to be doing that first week?
We're going to be talking about how to get started. So I'll be talking about different styles and approaches to knitting hats and scarves. How to find a pattern, because Sandra gave me the challenge of just finding a few patterns that are sets of hats and scarves. And you know what? They're hard to find. There are sets for hats and sweaters, hats and mittens, scarves and mittens, but hats and scarves just don't seem to happen. So I've attempted to select some sets or 2 patterns that match each other. And we'll be sharing those in the Facebook group that we'll be running this through, so that you have a choice. And I tried to select patterns for different weights of yarn. So for, say, a sport weight, a worsted weight, and a bulky weight, so that it would be easy to pick something that matches yarn you either have spun or plan to spin, or that you can buy from one of the Shave 'em to Save 'em suppliers. So it should give you some latitude. I also picked out a few crochet patterns. Even though I do crochet, I do read crochet patterns. I'm not an expert at all at crochet, but I tried to pick some variety there for the crocheters among us to give you some options. So the other things we'll talk about in that first class are how much yarn you might need if you don't have a pattern. So you know you can get started acquiring the yarn you need. You can tell I'm looking at my cheat sheet here. Cast-ons, so that what kind of cast-on you want to choose, so that if you do have a choice, you don't have to wait for the next class to get started. And which of the breeds are going to be best suited for hats and scarves. And we actually are going to take a little bit different approach to that than in the past. We're going to start from Deborah Robson's sheet for socks and talk about the differences in what you look for if you're going to make a hat or a scarf versus socks. And Deborah was very kind to let us use that again. And she said a whole bunch of notes on her opinions on how it's different. So we could just read through those and talk about them.
Awesome.
Then we're going to skip a week because I'm going to a breed-specific wool retreat with Deborah that week. So I won't be able to come on and talk to you, but I'll come back really excited about spinning breed-specific wools.
Well, enjoy that. I'm sure it's going to be a wonderful retreat. Wish I could go, but I'm not there as a spinner yet, so it would be a total waste of money. Okay, so the next class will be like Margaret just said, we're going to skip the following week, and then the second class will be Wednesday, November 17th, again at 7 p.m. And what's our agenda that night, Margaret?
That night, I plan to talk about hats. And because of the problems I had finding sets that match, one of the things I'll talk about is, what if you have a scarf pattern that you really like, but there's no hat pattern? How can you make a matching hat? And if you can't find a pattern you like, or everything seems to be too difficult, what are really, really easy ways to get started without any pattern at all? I have a few hats that are quite nice that are just a straight tube knit in a circle, and all you have to do is close the tube at the top. And I have a secret way of doing that. It's not really secret. There's a fun technique of closing the top that doesn't involve sewing, and so all you have to do is knit your hat, and you knit the top together, and you're done. You know, that easy. I know sometimes I say it's easy for the people who did the shawl challenge, and it sounds totally complicated. These are really easy. So that how you get a good fit, you know, and maybe a little bit more about the kinds of wool that you want to look for. But it will be open-ended. You know, you'll have had a chance for 2 weeks to look at patterns, perhaps get started and ask questions. And so whatever questions you bring up will help direct what I talk about that week.
Nice. That sounds actually like a very good plan, because I know once people dive into patterns, questions will come up for sure.
And one of the things I plan to do for people who are slightly more advanced and want to start a circular hat from the top down is I plan to record a little tutorial on how I like to start from the center, because it can be a bit fiddly. So I'm hoping to put up a video before that class, or 2 videos before that class, that show how to start from the center and how to start from the center with little I-cord, which is really cute. So you have a stem sticking up out of the top of your hat.
That's so cute. All right, then we're going to skip another, I believe it's 1 week. It might actually be 2
It's Thanksgiving week. We're going to skip Thanksgiving week.
Thank you. We're skipping Thanksgiving week so we can all enjoy prepping for our turkeys. And then December 1st, the very first day in December, is a Wednesday. And so that's session 3. And I guess we're moving on to Scarves on session 3.
That will be Scarves, and it will be parallel to the hats class, which is, what if you have a hat pattern you really like and you want to make a scarf, and simple approaches to scarves. Yeah. And then other considerations, because with scarves, you really want them to not curl. You can intentionally make a scarf that is in stockinette stitch and just curls up into a tube. And sometimes that's nice if it shows off, say, a boucle or a really fuzzy yarn. You'll end up with something like a little boa. But a lot of the time you don't want to do that. You want it to be flat. So we'll talk about ways to pick, say, a pattern stitch that's going to be flat, and to deal with making borders on something that wants to curl, as well as how do you just cast on and make your own scarf. And again, there's a really easy way to just cast on and make a plain scarf in a tube and close the ends with fringe. And you don't have to have a pattern to do it at all.
Wow. All right, you're making this challenge sound very approachable for a beginner, Margaret.
I sure hope so.
All right, and then our 4th and final week is Wednesday, December 8th.
And that day I plan to talk about finishing. So binding off, if you have to bind off at the bottom of a hat or the end of a scarf. With hats particularly, there's the issue that if it's too tight, it'll make a little crease across your forehead, or it won't be comfortable even though the rest of the hat is good. So ways of binding off loosely enough without having it be sloppy. Embellishments, like the little cords on top. I like to take, if I have strands at the top that I don't want to weave in, I'll take the strands and I'll make a little braid hanging down. In fact, I happen to have my own favorite hat that I wear all winter right here. And the way I finished it off was I just added another piece of yarn and I braided it. And so I've got this little string that hangs off. It blows in the wind. Anyway, that's just fun to take finishing and make it an embellishment instead of just a chore trying to hide the ends. So I'll talk about that a little bit. Tassels and pom-poms, and I guess I will either try to find tutorials that are already out on the internet or show you how I make them. I don't really like making pom-poms. That's my dirty little secret. I really like making tassels, and when I have limited yarn, I like to take all the yarn that's left over. If I spun it myself and I just have a little bit left, I'll use all the leftovers in a tassel so there's nothing left over at all, and I've used every inch. And then adding borders. If you've got something that looks uneven, you can add borders to it. Dealing with problems. So if you end up with a scarf that did curl, or your borders are all flipping to one side and not behaving the way you want, or you ran out of yarn and you're trying to figure out what to do to fix that problem, I'm going to rely on you to submit questions about problems or finishing or things that you're worried about dealing with after the 4th class is over, so that we can talk about them then.
Okay, great. Thank you, Margaret. So in regards to questions, for those folks who have not taken one of our challenges before, we do encourage questions every night of the challenge, and every night in between the live sessions, but then during the live sessions as well. And so these live sessions that we're talking about will be in the Shave 'em to Save 'em Hat and Scarf Challenge Facebook group, which is already set up online. And once you join the challenge, then you can go ahead and join that group. Sorry, I'm just looking at little side notes here that Brittany has left me. That just caught my attention. Little squirrel happening. So the Facebook group is great for folks to join who are in the challenge, because you get to chat with each other. You get to see Margaret's videos live, or if Wednesday at 7 p.m. doesn't work out for you, you can come back any other time at your convenience and watch those videos. They stay there in the group permanently for you to enjoy as many times as you want to watch them. Let's see what else. In that group, there is also a files folder where we have the official rules for the program, which include only using wool from the 23 breeds of sheep on our conservation priority list. The great thing about the challenge is you can actually blend any of those 23 breeds. So with your passport, we ask you to just use one breed at a time. Inside these challenges, we actually encourage you to play around with these breeds. And if you want to try a blend, try a blend. And show us what you've discovered, what new things you like. What else is in there? Rules. We'll pop Deb Robeson's, what Margaret just referred to a few minutes ago, Deb Robeson's recommendations for socks, because we're going to refer to that. And Margaret will have patterns to pop in the file folders too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay.
And also I teach a couple of classes, as the people who took the Shawls Challenge know. I teach classes in how to design without a pattern. And so I'll be putting those course materials out there for hats and for scarves, so that you can just refer to those and use those as a basis for what you do if you'd like. Plus some of my own patterns that are not normally free. Well, at least one, maybe more. I need to pull them out. I need to run them past Cinder first, actually.
I'm sure they're lovely.
Yeah.
All right. So basically, in a nutshell, everything is going to be in the Facebook group, the Shave 'em to Save 'em Hat and Scarf Challenge Facebook group. You will, once you sign up through our website for the challenge, you'll receive a confirmation email from me that will give you a link to the Facebook group. We'll also give you a link to the Livestock Conservancy Breeders Directory online, where you can go and find the Shave 'em to Save 'em fiber providers if you do need to purchase fiber for this challenge. And I think that's everything about the challenge in a nutshell. We want to see what you come up with, what you create. And Margaret, anything that I've forgotten, which is more than likely.
I have one little thing I'd like to share, because I went to my studio and I pulled out a bunch of hats and scarves, which you can see. I know we moved the wrong way. You can see behind me a few of them. I have scarf and hat friends surrounding me here.
Aww.
There are lots of them, but no matching sets, which is problematic, which is why I'm going to explain how to do it. But what I do have, one of the things I like to do when I'm exploring hats is I like to make what I call maquettes, which are little tiny sample hats. Maquettes are what sculptors make. And I ran across ones I made for the hat chapter of Circular Knitting Workshop. So I have this little witch's hat. And actually the free pattern for this is on my website and available all the time. I have this little one with a turn-up border, which is the maquette for I Won't Pull the Hat. And I have another little one here that they have stands at the top. Let me hold them up a little bit closer. So this is something that you can do if you have an idea that you want to try out and you don't want to commit yourself to knitting a whole hat and having it not work, is you can knit a teeny tiny one. It just needs to be big enough that you can work it. If it's too tiny and too fiddly, it makes it hard. But when it's big enough to fit around your fingers, about mitten size, it works very nicely. And it's fun to try out the stem at the top, or a different kind of increase that ends up being an embellishment, which is what's going on with this.
I like that.
Diagonal. Did I do it the right way? That diagonal there. So I will leave you with that. Did you want to put up the URLs for my website and my Facebook page?
I do, yes. I did want to just, on your mock hats real quickly, are those, I know you're not making them for dolls specifically, but are those sized appropriately for a doll, do you think? Not a Barbie doll, but like a baby doll.
For a Barbie, it's too small for an American girl. I don't know. They really were just to try out a few details, starting how the increases looked on the hat and a brim or border, just so I could try out a few of the details and check out how often I should increase and decrease, that kind of thing. So no, but they could be. The lovely thing, so you're getting me started on technical details. The lovely thing about all of these is they start from the top and I can do this, start from the top and go down. So you just keep increasing until it's the size you want. And then for a hat like this, once it's big enough around, you just stop increasing and work straight. So it's just a straight tube. And then when it's long enough, you put some sort of a border or brim on it and you're done. And so that's what my handout for my hats class, it's called Fantastic No Gauge Hats. That's what it's about. It's how often you have to increase to get different effects, and add some information about border treatments. And so you can make up any of these yourself and make them any size you like.
Mm-hmm. And with your instructions on how to work without a pattern, I mean, I was initially thinking this was going to be hats and scarves for humans, for either ourselves or for gifts, but folks could actually consider making a little hat and a scarf for a child or a grandchild's dolls. So,
and there are plenty of charities you can donate to, especially at this time of year. Homeless shelters, women's shelters. And we have something called the Montgomery County Christmas Store, which is a combined effort of all the churches and social service agencies. And they set up a shop where people can go and pick out what they want, although not during the pandemic, but they accept hand knit hats. Since you're interested in it, this is another easy way to make a hat and scarf that match. This hat was made by casting on for this patterned sort of mock rib section. And then I just knit until it was big enough to go around my head. And when it was the right length for my head, I sewed the two ends together. And then I picked up stitches around the top and decreased to make a crown. The bottom edge looked messy, so I picked up stitches around it and knitted a few rounds and bound off. But you could, of course, because this is a pattern stitch that doesn't curl, you could then cast on and make a scarf that matches the sides of the hat. So this is what I'm talking about when I say simple ways to approach it. If you can't find a pattern for a set that you like, this is an easy way. Pick a pattern stitch you know that doesn't curl and just knit a strip the size of your head. And then if it's too narrow, you can add at the bottom and top and make it the right height. It's actually very straightforward and it's fun to do.
It looks like it, although we'll see if I get it done.
Well, if you knit baby-sized hats for charity, that makes it easier.
Right. And that's what I started to say, is that I know a lot of the hospital NICU units, they welcome donation hats.
They do. They don't always want wool, though. They usually want ones that can be washed and sterilized and are so generally they don't accept wool. They want cotton or something like that.
Okay.
You'd have to check with your local NICU unit to see.
Yeah, we do have washable breeds on the list. However, as far as the sterilization process, I don't know how that's undertaken, so I don't know if they'd hold up to that.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, let me find your. Okay, here's Maggie's website, maggiesrags.com. And that's where you have all kinds of goodies, right?
Well, that's where I have it's, some of it's a bit out of date because I haven't been teaching very much, but that's where I have links to all my books, so you can see what my books are. I have a tips page. I have information pages about all my patterns, and I have some free patterns. And in fact, if you go to the free patterns page, that's one of the URLs I'll provide. I have a bunch of free hat patterns out there already that are up for grabs, but they don't have any scarves to go with them. So I'll be happy to tell you how to make scarves to go with them. And it has like my schedule of workshops, but at the moment, there's not much in the schedule. I'm waiting for confirmation from a couple of places. The place where I think there's interesting stuff you might want to look at is my Facebook page. And on my Facebook page, Maggie's Rags, I tend to post more fiber information there. But I also, although you don't have the URL for it, I have to come up with it. If you go to Facebook and you look for Margaret Radcliffe, and you go to my personal page and go to the photo albums, I have public albums that have breed studies for all of the breed-specific work that I've done, starting from washing the wool through spinning it, and for the things where I've actually made things, the finished product. And all of the Shave 'em to Save 'em breeds that I have completed are out there. Some that are still in process are out there. And they're named, they have the breed name on them. So if you want to see what I did with Jacob, you can find the Jacob sheep albums, and with CVM Rommeldale, and with the Down breeds, and all the others. And I really enjoy discussing my work with those because I've learned so very much for the last 2.5 years or so that I've been working with the breeds. I've made a point of trying to work from raw wool to finished yarn as my project, and just handling each of the different breeds and running the fiber through your hands and then swatching with it and playing with it. I've learned so much that's going to inform my knitting design and my teaching in the future that I consider it's like getting a master's degree in breed specific fibers.
That's awesome. And breed specific fibers they're catching on. I've seen some other yarn companies really marketing single breed yarn. So I hope that this momentum continues to grow. And I'm glad you've been having fun with it. That's fantastic. All right. Well, I think we've shared everything that we need to share. I'm going to share this one more time. This is the link that Brittany shared for me. Sign up at the Shave 'em to Save 'em Hat and Scarf Challenge online. And there is the link. We're just going to let it linger here for a little bit in case somebody needs to copy it or write it down. But know that you can also get it right off the homepage too at livestockconservancy.org. If you scroll to the blog section of the page there. I'm super excited about this challenge, Margaret.
So am I. It's going to be fun. Of course, now I have to change my plans for what I was going to be knitting so I can start knitting things for the challenge.
Well, I'm thinking I might actually be able to get through a scarf. I don't know about the hat, but I thought, I'll do the sock challenge. Well, I'd not knit anything before, so socks was not the place for me to start.
The nice thing about scarves is they can be big and cuddly, but they can also be really tiny. Let me give you an example. This is not wool. This is silk. Mm-hmm. And you can actually see a little bit of it in the light here. Yeah. It's from one skein of very expensive silk yarn. It's just a tiny amount, but it's enough. If I put it around my neck, it keeps the back of my neck warm in a chilly house. And this is something you could do with just a small amount of yarn. You don't have to do the pattern stitch that's on it. The pattern stitch, I don't know. The white is so hard. There we go. It's a basket weave with some little lace in some of the windows. So you can knit a small scarf, or I consider a scarf to be a cowl. You can knit something the size of a turtleneck and just pull it over your head and wear it around your neck. And it'll go fast. Trust me, it'll go fast. I can tell you what to do right now. You can have it done for Wednesday's class.
All right. Well, I'm not gonna start until Wednesday because I need to figure out what it is I need to get. All right, folks, we won't keep you any longer. As you can see, we're getting giddy about this challenge. So we both would love to have you join us next Wednesday. You can start signing up today. Oh, $20. Forgot to tell you how much it is. It's $20 for the challenge. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And we hope to see you next Wednesday at the Shave 'em to Save 'em Hat and Scarf Challenge Facebook group at 7 p.m.
See you then.
Bye, everybody.